Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Michael Davis from Mira Scriptura. Today I want to talk about quotes and allusions when mere reading, primarily in reference to New Testament quotes and allusions to the Old Testament. There are other quotes and allusions in the Bible besides those to the Old Testament, but today primarily just focusing on those in the New Testament. So, when mere reading a quote or allusion, you have to look at it a little bit differently. So, for example, if Paul is quoting something from the Old Testament, he's not sitting down and saying, "Hey, what can I, what's a good verse I can use?" Not that they had verses back then, but what's a good verse that I can use to prove my point? When mere reading, it's possible that he could be basically reinterpreting the scriptures that the false teachers were using. So the false teachers were saying, hey, look at Isaiah such and such, and this proves our point about our false teaching. This proves our false teaching. And Paul comes back in his letters and he's basically saying, no, take a look at Isaiah such and such, and it actually means this, and it actually points to Christ, or it actually disproves the false teaching. So, for example, if we look at Ephesians 6, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but so in Ephesians 6, it's the popular verse about the armor of God, belt of truth, breastplate of righteousness, helmet of salvation. It also talks about the day of evil, and evil can mean destruction. The Hebrew idea, or even the Greek idea of evil, had to do with destruction or some sort of dysfunction. So that day of evil could actually be translated day of destruction. And what the false teachers were using, this is an allusion to, here's a picture. All right, so those are allusions to Isaiah. So Isaiah 59 talks about the righteousness as a breastplate and helmet of salvation. And then also Isaiah 11, you have the belt of truth. And so if we mirror read that and we look at the context of the letter, we can piece together that the false teachers were using these verses from the context of Isaiah. So in the context of Isaiah, they were saying, it talks about God when he comes to destroy the Gentile nations. Well, he's going to be wearing his armor when he destroys them. He's going to be wearing his helmet of salvation and his breastplate of righteousness. In Isaiah 11, the Messiah is going to be wearing the belt of truth. And so all these are symbols or descriptions of how God's going to destroy the Gentiles. And Paul kind of turns that around, and he says, no, these items are not for your destruction. And again, that day of evil is day of destruction. So, to them, day of destruction is for the Gentiles and the church. Listening to the false teachers, it was very bad because false teachers were saying, hey, on the day of destruction, God's going to destroy the Gentiles, and he's going to be wearing this armor of God. And Paul kind of spins that on its head and says, no, you're going to stand in the day of destruction because you're wearing God's breastplate of righteousness and helmet of salvation. So Paul's not just making this stuff up. He's alluding to the verses that the false teachers were using, but then he's using them to prove his point. All right, so just to review, quotes and allusions, Paul's not just making them up. He's not just picking them because he likes them out of the Old Testament. He's alluding to them or quoting them because the false teachers were using the same verses to support their arguments, and Paul is using them to counter-argue against them. Now, this raises an interesting question when it comes to extra-biblical sources, because the book of Enoch is alluded to, even quoted in Jude. So, if we can mirror read those quotes and allusions, well, what does that mean? Well, it could mean that the false teachers were using the book of Enoch to support their position. Now, if the book of Enoch is not considered valid or truthful, the obvious counter response to the false teachers would be to say, hey, don't listen to any arguments that's supported by the Book of Enoch, because the Book of Enoch is can't be used. It's not true. It's not good. It's not right. But they don't say that. They use the Book of Enoch to counter argue against the false teachers. So it's kind of, I wouldn't say making it part of the canon, but they are putting, New Testament writers, when they do that, are putting some sort of stamp of approval on the Book of Enoch, in my opinion. Otherwise, they would just disregard it. So those are some things that you need to keep in mind when you're reading Quotes and Allusions. Thanks.